Justin, hi again. I'm curious about what Whitley Strieber had to say about hands-on healers. I had to leave before that part of the program was over. Could you fill me in on that? That's an area of particular interest to me.
Okay, for those of you who aren't familiar with the radio broadcast Dreamtime, which is on web radio by Whitley Strieber, I'm a big fan of the program. It runs from the really fascinating to sometimes completely nutty. But the thing that's nice about Whitley is he has an open mind to everything. And had a doctor on a couple of years ago. I go back through his archives as I think that the older programs are better. And for any of you who aren't familiar with him, I would just look up unknowncountry.com, all one word on your web, and you'll get it. And it's worth subscribing to for 3 or 6 months, and you can run through archives going back to 2002, I think, you know. We have some interesting characters, and the best stuff, I think, is the stuff that comes from people you wouldn't normally associate with alternative worldviews, and that is real scientists, you know, not your wacko scientists who kind of make up their own degrees, and real medical doctors. And he had one on last night when I was listening to an older broadcast. There's a doctor based in California who had received a grant to test healers to see what they could heal, you know, and to get some documented evidence on their practice and their methods. And I kind of drifted off and on to sleep. I listen late at night, you know, and sometimes I wake up, the same thing is playing again on the computer, so I get to get little pieces of it. But it was an interesting program because there was no doubt in this doctor's mind that, in fact, healing is taking place, and in some cases, quite remarkable in the case of a paraplegic, which was unbelievable. He said that it seems to him, from all the studies he's done with healers, is that they are a little in awe of their powers as a rule. They're not big talkers. You know, if you have a big talker, chances are that's not a real healer. And they're a little wary of their gifts. They seem to have something in them, an energy, since we're all made of energy, as the doctor said, and he was right up with his latest scientific thinking. Why not be able to rearrange that energy somewhat so you could heal? And you know, Jung had a word for it. There's a German word called balance for healers, where you have to balance the body, you know. And I've been, I read some of Carolyn Meiss's work, you know, and she was a healer herself, or learned from an MD, and she had no idea that she had those powers. And in fact, that most people don't until they lay hands on somebody, and all of a sudden that they feel better. They can sense where they're hurting, and they can sense intuitively, without knowing much, how to adjust it. Although in the case of Carolyn, she went to the practice of a doctor who was also a psychic healer, who taught her how to interpret the various feelings and the various messages you get, because it's not written on a plate that this patient has stomach ulcers. It's a kind of feeling that you get in your body, or maybe little pictures, and you have to learn how to interpret those, you know. So there's an educational process too. But he felt also that sometimes some of the more powerful healers were channeling. That's the best word he could come from. And they were bringing in additional healing power. You know, where that's from, I would just say that it's from the collective unconscious, so we just stay in a scientific way of thinking. Who's to know where it really comes from? But in fact, the healers told him that the power is beyond their own individual power. They feel it coming through them, and they go into a state that's similar to a trance state. So they let that take care of itself. You know, that healing power seems to know where to go in the patient's body. So this is just one more indication to me, and in fact anybody who is involved in the psychic life of human beings, since this power, this healing power, doesn't come from the rational mind. You can't screw up your mind and go like that and go heal, heal, heal. You see guys do that on TV, they're all fakes. It has to come from internally in the, let's say it's in the non-rational part of us, which in fact we'll call the unconscious mind, whatever it happens to be, or the soul. And it sometimes comes from beyond the individual's unconscious, from somewhere. Who's to say where it comes from? It comes from the life force in the universe. Some people are tuned into it, and it pours through them. They just allow it to come through them. The other thing that, in fact, the doctor said is many of the healers were a little leery of their powers because they were in awe of them, and they were afraid that in fact, they might do some damage, you know? So it gives you some idea of people who are healers. You know, Christ was known to be a healer. He must have had enormous psychic powers in that particular realm, you know. They exist. It's not a figment of the imagination. Now, there's always some guy who's going to call it the professional skeptic, says, well, this doesn't exist, but it does exist. Anybody who's been healed by a psychic healer knows that it exists and is real, you know. So, but if you don't know about unknowncountry.com, I would go in and subscribe to it. You can hear the current programs for free, but it's the old ones that are the really interesting one. And that just is one more indication that the alternative wisdom, the alternative knowledge, the alternative worldviews aren't a lot of baloney. You know, it's just that our medicine is about 200 years old, Western medicine. You know, it grew out of barbers who would do surgery with their razors because they had all that stuff at hand, you know. But the fact of the matter is there are older traditions such as the psychic healers, and there are traditions such as acupuncture and all of the other shamanic traditions that go even beyond that do heal people, you know. So anyway, that I'm a believer in it, that you have to find the right healer. It has to be the right time. And there really isn't any boundary as to what the injury can be or what the illness can be. You just have to find the right person. You have to get to them. And that's just a matter of hunting and pecking until you find somebody.